Well, hey everyone. Welcome to episode 402 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen with your host, Matt Payne. This week, I'm dedicating an entire episode to print on demand. Print on demand is essentially an automated way of fulfilling your print orders through a laboratory that is connected to your website. On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution. Heaps of photographers ask me what my thoughts are on print-on-demand services, and I've never been able to refer them to a service that I could trust. Enter Lumaprints. Today, I sit down with Lumaprints co-founder Ken Lee to discuss how Lumaprints has solved all of the print-on-demand problems that have caused me to hesitate recommending this method of print fulfillment before today. Before we get started, I wanted to thank our latest podcast supporters on Patreon, Madeline Lena, Michael Vandenhoven, and Joseph Amar. You all seriously made my day by financially supporting the podcast. If you get any value from the show, please help support it. Just go to patreon.com/fstop and listen to support the show. If you don't have time to do that, please take a moment and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am also looking for listeners to send me their lists of favorite episodes for a future blog post. Thanks in advance to anyone who steps up to help out. Okay, let's get to this week's episode with Ken Lee from Lumaprints. All right, Ken Lee, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited for this one. It's a little bit different than episodes we've done in the past. We've had some print labs on the show, and we've had a couple of owners of print labs and things like that. But I think what you guys are doing with Lumaprints is a little bit different. And I field a lot of questions from listeners and just photographers who love nature and landscape about print on demand. So I think this is going to be a really interesting episode. Ken, for people who haven't heard of you before, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah, my name's Ken. I'm one of the owners and co-founders of Lumaprints. I started together with my brother about 14 years ago now. It's been a little while, time flies by. So we're based in Southern California, outside of Los Angeles in Orange County. We do have a second facility in Louisville, Kentucky as well, where Young, the other co-founder, is running right now. So we serve primarily business customers or photographers, like photographers, artists, people who sell online. So the primary part of our business is really print on demand and drop shipping, as you've alluded to earlier. And our roots are founded really in the art and photography space. Our early customers were artists and photographers who were nearby in our area. Like there's a large art community in Southern California here. And then we also started serving artists who sell online as well. So that's where we kind of grew really into the print-on-demand space. As you know, artists and photographers are really demanding about quality. So that's where our roots in like really creating and maintaining high quality products come in as well. But of course, since our customers are businesses, they have to sell, their products for margin. Our business philosophy is to provide great quality products at affordable prices or good prices so that obviously our customers, like, the photographers, artists, can, sell it at a profit and make some money during that process as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like you are kind of working more in the kind of volume side of things. Like, I'm curious, do you have a ballpark figure of like how many prints you're creating and shipping on any given week or month?
Sure, yes. So we do volume, but as part of it, we strive to maintain volume with quality as well. So we ship about 2,000 to 3,000 prints, actually about 3,000 plus prints per day right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So
yeah, and just for the listeners, I wouldn't have even considered having you guys on if your quality didn't meet a certain threshold. And you guys actually printed a couple of test prints for me. I have 2 of them right here on the wall. So like I thought they were good enough to put on my wall. So I think the quality is right up there. So I think you stand behind what you said. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about print on demand. What exactly is it, and why would photographers want to utilize those types of services?
Sure. So print on demand is when you are selling your products and you get an order, that's when you place the order. That's why it's called on demand. The good thing about that business model is that you don't have to like pre-purchase anything or carry any kind of inventory. For example, like if you buy a bunch of prints in advance and they don't sell, then obviously like A, you got to pay the money in advance, right? And B, if it's unsold, then you carry the unsold inventory. Part about a print-on-demand kind of business model is that A, usually you collect the money first from your clients, so you have the money in hand. And then B, you only get the products after that. The second nice thing about the business model is that it's pretty scalable. So, you can get as many orders as you want, and then if you work with a partner who can scale with you, then you can sell one, you can sell 100, you can sell 1,000, and that helps you scale your business as a photographer really easily.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when I think of print on demand, the first thing that comes to my mind, and maybe you can correct me if I'm incorrect in the way I think about this, but I think of print on demand as like you set it up and you let it do its thing once it's all set up. So like if a customer purchases something through my website, there's some kind of integration with the lab, and then the lab gets the order, and then they fulfill the order and they take a part of your profit out of that. Is that pretty typical for what you see with your customers?
Yes, a lot of them do that. Some of them, so some of our customers do manual order processing. Some of them are automated. We do have automations built into our website. Placing an order manually or semi-manually just takes about a minute, so also doesn't take up much of your time. Our business model is that we price at flat, affordable pricing. So you can mark it up as much as you want, depending on where you sell your prints, whether it's through your own website, whether it's through the different marketplaces out there like Etsy, Amazon, etc., or whether it's through shows. You set your own pricing, and then obviously you make the margin in between.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because the model that I currently use is kind of a hybrid of that. I mean, I get orders for prints through my website, and then I have to kind of manually fill the order through my print lab. And what I liked about using a print-on-demand service is that once the order was placed, it was already connected to the print-on-demand laboratory, and then
Yes.
they would fill the order for me and ship it. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that. I just found in the past, and we'll get more into this later, but I found in the past that a lot of the traditional print-on-demand services that existed, quality was really poor, and there was not a lot of quality control in terms of like making sure that what was on my website actually is what the customer received. And of course, there's about 200,000 variables that go into that particular dilemma, right? But I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about how you've found ways to ensure that high quality in your product.
Sure, yeah. So as you mentioned, there's like a lot of different parts of the process in creating prints. I guess starting from the beginning in terms of even receiving the orders from our customers. So we have dedicated staff of customer service team members who actually look at every single order that gets placed. They check the image for quality and make sure, like, for example, if there's a signature on it, signature doesn't get cropped out. So we do a manual eyeball review of all the orders that come in as a first step. Then during the printing process, we make sure that from a color quality perspective, we do continuous color calibrations on our printers to make sure that they're color calibrated and that we're printing the colors as is on what the file, like the colors on what the file is, to make sure that like what you see is what you get. The quality of the materials also matter a lot. So we use all our materials are archival-grade quality. We use archival-grade inks, archival-grade like media, like between the papers, canvases, etc. So with all that, that makes sure that the actual materials are last. Basically, archival means it lasts over 100 years if you treat it well. You don't put it in direct sunlight, right? So
Right.
it'll last over 100 years. So that's the second step of our quality process. The third then is as it goes through the production line, we have quality control steps and quality checks along the whole production process too. So that's how we keep our quality up. The other factor is that, as and when, it doesn't happen very often, but as and when there is any kind of issues, whether like it's shipping through FedEx and that they step on the box and damage it, or if there does happen to be any imperfections on the print, we make the replacement process like super easy. Just take a picture of the product, send it to us, and then we'll ship a replacement out free of charge right away.
Yeah, I mean, FedEx and UPS never damage my prints. It happens all the time, right? Like it's just inevitable, especially since COVID for whatever reason. Like chucking
Yeah.
stuff and stepping on stuff. It's kind of interesting how it's gotten so much worse, but it is what it is, I guess.
Generally, we see like really low damage rates. It's less than like 1%, less than 0.5% for the majority of our products. But as you say, when you ship enough of them, it happens, right? So that's where we make it like super easy to get replacements out.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I'd love to hear a little bit more of the backstory of like how did you decide to create a print on demand service? Like what was your kind of background that got you interested in printing photography?
Sure. So I've always loved artwork, and we originally, interesting story, we really originally started out as a painting on demand business where customers would upload their photographs to us or portraits. We'd have artists paint the pictures and then we'd ship it out. That turned
Oh,
out to be
interesting.
pretty difficult to scale because the more customers we got, the more artists and et cetera we'd have to find. So that turned out to be kind of hard to scale. So we thought, hey, why don't we just start printing it instead? Using printers as reproduction, right? So that's how we kind of moved into the printing on demand space instead. We started out small in the beginning. My brother Young, he started out in his spare bedroom, and then we kind of really the story of starting in the basement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or the garage, so to say. So we really grew it step by step there, and then yeah, so it's been a pretty exciting journey.
That's awesome. So going back to the concept of print on demand, what do you feel like are some of the main advantages of using print on demand as a service for photographers and artists?
I think it's a great way to create extra value out of your products. So, especially there's a lot of different marketplaces around where you can sell your products. And I think a great way, I mean, something great nowadays is social media, where if you create your audience, you can, sell your prints to your audience, again, in a low risk way for yourself because you don't have to pre-purchase all the products in inventory.
That makes sense. And then along those same lines, I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about what you feel like some of the disadvantages of print on demand are, and what are some of the things that you guys do at Lumaprints to reduce those disadvantages?
Sure. I think one thing that does happen when you do drop shipping and print on demand is that because we usually send the product straight to your customer, you don't see the product first. So, if you work with a partner who creates high quality products and has quality control, that's not as much of a problem. But if there any basically you don't see the product in between, right? So I think that's where a little bit of the obviously loss of control is, but I think that's where having a trusted partner comes in to play.
Yeah, and in my experience, the way to establish that trust is to get some tests done and make sure that it meets your standards, right?
Yes, and so a lot of our customers do get sample prints from us first. They see and love the quality, and that's why they continue working with us.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed about you guys is that you have really low cost in terms of the production. I did a little bit of cost comparing between you and some of the more traditional labs, and you guys were almost always below what the other labs were charging. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about how the heck you've pulled that off.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors come into play there. One is that scale definitely helps, right? Like we buy our materials in bulk, so having that purchasing power that drives our cost of materials down by quite a bit. Having sort of more industrial production processes helps. We also built a lot of automation in place. So I do have a bit of tech background as well. I studied a little bit of software engineering, so we have a development team on staff that's built. We built our own website. We built a lot of automated processes in our backend, both for order placement as well as through our production processes. So that helps to streamline all of that, and of course, we pass a lot of the savings on to our customers. And the third factor is that we are independently owned and operated. So we're not owned by, like, let's say some large hedge funds or like private equity, where then they need to have much higher profit margins to pay, all the levels of management and owners over there, right? So we try to keep things as lean as possible and again, pass the savings on to our customers.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's talk a little bit about file management. One of the main disadvantages that I've found with print on demand and fulfilling print orders is that as the photographer, we lose some of the control over the processes in terms of file management, custom sizing, and some of the quality control that comes out of those two variables. What are some of the ways that you've addressed some of those concerns at Lumaprints?
Sure. So on the custom sizing, we're actually super flexible on that. I guess just talking about the different products that we have. So we have canvas prints, framed canvas prints, fine art prints, and framed fine art prints, metal prints as well. So, and peel and stick. So for all these products, we actually let customers buy any custom size that they want from certain range, right? So for canvas prints, the smallest is 5 by 7 up to a 54-inch by 110-inch long.
Pretty big.
It's pretty big. Yeah. The same thing for framed canvases. For framed fine art prints, it's up to from 5 by 7s up to 40 by 60s, outer dimension, glass size. For metal prints is also 5 by 7s up to 40 by 60s. And because we custom all our moldings in-house, that's why we can create all these custom sizes so that, as a photographer, if you want any kind of different or random, like different sizes that you want, we offer that option. In our website, when you're going through the ordering process, you can just, select the custom size that you want, right? So it's very customizable there. On the file management, we do have an image library that you can manage your files through. So you don't have to constantly upload, especially for larger file sizes, we don't have to constantly upload them there. And there's names, so you can search for the image that you want there, that you've uploaded before. So regarding the image size too, so generally we accept image sizes up to 100 megabytes through our website. So that's generally pretty large file sizes. If you really need to upload like a really high sized image, we can accept images through like WeTransfer as well.
That was the main concern that I have because I export all of my print ready files as 16-bit TIFFs, mostly because I've found that JPEGs, sometimes you can get some artifacting and some banding and like really contrasty areas of the print, like in the skies and stuff like that. So I'm sure you've seen that a few times, but other than WeTransfer, do you guys have any plans to integrate 16-bit TIFF files?
We're still looking into it, potentially.
Cool. That's simple enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about the framing. So one of the things that I appreciated about what you guys offer is all, the simplicity, but also the customization that you offer, including framing. And framing is one of the questions that I get almost the most often from customers, like, hey, I want to get this framed. Do you offer framing? And I typically have shied away from framing on my end of things, mostly because most of the labs I've worked with in the past are very shy to do framing because it gets damaged so easily in shipping. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about how you prevent framed prints from getting damaged, especially the glass and things like that.
Yeah, so for framed fine art prints, we do extra steps to protect the prints during packaging, during shipping. So there's a couple of steps that we take. For the smaller prints, we strap it onto a piece of cardboard and kind of like, we call it spidering, but there's probably a better, more industrial term for that. But basically, we cut out like straps on it. For example, like if there's an 11 by 14 print or frame print, we ship it in a 16 by 20 inch box and use a 16 by 20 inch piece of cardboard to kind of float it in place to create sort of like crush zones or bounce zones in between. So that really helps prevent the damage. For the larger prints, we also put bubble wrap around the sides of it. Well, we put foam around the sides of it. We also create more strength in the box by putting rectangular tubes along all the sides of the box, rectangular cardboard tubes. So the rectangle would be folded into tubes. So those tubes create a lot more stiffness on the box. Because one thing that we found is that during shipping process, if the box flexes also, that can create damage on the print. So those square tubes prevent the flexing of the box, as well as, again, create more crush zones or protection zones for a drop, to help out dropping.
That makes sense. Maybe that's a good segue for you to talk a little bit more about some of the customization that you offer in terms of the types of materials, the types of hanging hardware, and the types of surfaces that you make available for framing as well as the frames themselves.
So we'll talk about framed art prints first. So we do have a variety of papers available. I think we have like 5 or 6 papers available. So we have our archival matte paper, we have a semi-gloss, we have a glossy, we have a hot press and a cold press paper. Those are both matte fine art papers. We also have metallic paper, like that. Some photography can look really nice on that. For molding, we have a variety of. I guess you could like. I would say go on our website lumaprints.com. You can see all the different products there. But we have a lot of basic molding, so black, white, color, gold as well. So we cover the and like a lighter wood shade, which like a maple color
Hmm.
molding. So we have all the basics. We actually have a variety of moldings that we're planning on adding in the new year that are a little bit more ornate as well. So that will be coming out soon.
That makes sense. And then what about the different surfaces for the frame prints themselves, like glass, acrylic, glare free, that kind of stuff?
Okay, we only do acrylic because of shipping.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that because that seems like the only way to do it without totally losing your lunch on shipping.
Well, I think the other part is really safety. So just in case any glass
Totally.
shatters during shipping, we want to prevent that, and any customers potentially cutting themselves. So that's why we stick with an acrylic product. We also offer a variety of matting as well. So the matting comes in, I think, a range of different colors. Again, you can check out all the colors on our website. Of course, we have the basic, black, white, you know, and different colors like green, blue, etc.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, but on the website, you also have some virtualization that is available to the customer. Like I can kind of see what it would look like once before I mash the purchase button.
Yes. So when you're going through the order placement process, we do have an image editor that can show you where and how all the images are going to be cropped, and you can, resize it, etc. during that process, so that it gives you a much better idea of how the print will come out afterwards.
Cool. Well, let's shift gears and talk about integration and the different platforms that you're able to connect with. A couple of years ago, I did a pretty extensive kind of scouring of what's out there in terms of how photographers can sell prints, and I created a whole presentation about it. And when I finished my research, there's most people are either doing like Zenfolio, Photo Shelter, SmugMug, and then or they're creating their own website through WordPress or Wix or something like that. So what are the different ways that people can integrate into your print on demand service?
Sure. So we have direct integrations with some websites, including Shopify, the WordPress one, and we also are integrated into ShipStation and OrderDesk as well. So OrderDesk and ShipStation are kind of more platforms that connect into a lot of other different websites. We are planning integrations into Wix and some other ones as well soon. So with the integrations, any orders coming through these websites will go directly into your account on lumaprints.com. And then from there, it's very easy so you'll see all your order details there, right? For example, like the thumbnail of your image, the size that's ordered, all the product details. So then it's very easy to just select the corresponding product for that and then check out. Again, that takes about 1 minute per order. You can also set up automations there. For example, you can link a specific product and, variants to the specific physical product that you want to sell and ship out to your customers. So then once you set those automations up, as soon as orders come in, they'll get automatically fulfilled and shipped out.
I think the automation piece is what a lot of people are really looking for these days. I get so many questions from people about automation, and I feel like that's why a lot of people go the SmugMug route or the Zenfolio route or the, I guess, Fine Art America route, where they're doing all the printing for you and you don't have to do a whole lot of techie stuff on the back end. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about kind of how you guys help people get that integration and that automation set up.
Sure. So we do have onboarding and onboarding team as well to help hand out as much as the customers want, right, in terms of getting integration set up. So we can set up like Zoom calls with you to literally, sit down together and walk through and get the integration set up and show you, here's how you link all the products up, etc. So we're pretty hands-on in that respect in terms of helping out on the integrations. Yeah, we do have videos on our YouTube channel as well to, for the people who are a little bit more self-serve, right? So we have all the how-tos there in terms of like step-by-step how to do all the integrations also. So whether you want to, self-serve DIY, learn how to do it yourself, or if you want a little bit extra help, we offer all these different options.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, I've mentioned a few times now Zenfolio and SmugMug, which are pretty well-known photography-centric website builders that integrate into Bayphoto and some other laboratories. The disadvantage of those that I found is that there's usually it's about a 10% fee that they take off the top of any print sales that you have. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about how you guys are different and or better than a SmugMug and Zonfolio in regards to how that integration works.
Sure, yeah, I think there's some pros and cons to the different services and approaches. I think using like a smug mug, it's probably easier in terms of the setup, and then like there's less work to do. Versus like creating your own website or selling through different marketplaces. The downside of that, the downside is they charge higher pricing, so you make less margin at any kind of given retail price, right? B, the downstream quality control and or connecting with the lab itself is harder because you're not talking like we are the manufacturer ourselves, so customers can talk to us directly should there be any needs in terms of like, hey, I want to change my order, or can you do this or that? Like, we have
Yes.
a lot of different kind of requests from our customers, so being able to talk to the lab or the company directly enables a lot of these kind of things. Or like, hey, like I want to change my order. There's a lot of different things that go on, right? And where being able to talk to the lab directly just makes it that much more easy. And I think that's one of the things that our customers appreciate about us as well is our level of service that we provide to our customers.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about that aspect of Zenfolio, at least. I was a Zenfolio customer for 7 years, and I remember there was an issue with one of my prints, and there was no way to talk directly to the lab. Had to do it all through Zenfolio, and it was like someone who doesn't even work in the lab and didn't even know what went into creating the print. And so it was like this huge disconnect, and they just kept telling me that my monitor needed to be calibrated, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, I know what I'm doing. That's not the issue here. And they refused to reprint it, and it was really frustrating. And whereas like my experience working directly with other labs has been completely different from that. So what you just said right there, I think people need to put a higher price tag on that particular aspect of things, because it is really important to be able to speak directly to the people who are making your artwork.
Yeah. I guess from like the photographer perspective, right? Like using a smug mug, using one of those services to sell your prints is fine, but I think there's a lot of advantages to going multi-platform too. Well, I guess the different part of it is that from a business perspective, probably driving traffic in is the most important part, right? In terms of getting sales. So how you get the traffic is what creates the majority of your sales and revenue. And then the second part is how much margin you make on it. Given how easy, like, yeah, so given how easy it is to make e-commerce sites and many other platforms now, then that's the kind of trade-offs or like things to think about as you decide where you want to sell.
Yeah, when you said multi-platform, what did you mean by that? Did you mean like on your own website, on Etsy? Like what were you talking about
Exactly.
there?
So on your own website, on Etsy, in other different marketplaces like Wayfair, etc.
Okay, yeah.
I know a lot of our customers also participate in fairs or like conventions or like art shows. In those cases, it's a little bit different, right? Because then they would just pre-purchase. That's the case where you do need to get inventory.
Right.
You want to be able to sell it right there. Some of them do a hybrid model where they pre-buy a lot of inventory to sell at, or some amount of inventory to sell at the show. They also take custom orders there as well to say like, let's say if customers want, the prints in different sizes, they can take the order then and there and then just, go place it with us and we'll ship it straight to the customer as well.
Yeah, if I did art shows, which I don't, that's exactly how I would do it. I would come with like probably 3 or 4 really big prints that were my favorite images on a big size, on acrylic, look real good. And then I would bring probably a bunch of like 16 by 20s and 24 by 36s in a variety of mediums. And then I would have a bunch of like smaller prints that people could just take with them. And then I would make everything available to people custom ordered. So that's probably the best route, I would think. Although I've never done one before, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we see a lot of our customers doing exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't do art fairs because I mean, it's a logistical nightmare for me. Like that's a lot of time to be away from home. Usually it's in the best times of the year to be photographing. So
Yeah.
no, thank you. Maybe when I'm retired, we'll see. Yeah, it's interesting you brought up Etsy and Wayfair. I hadn't really considered using some of those big marketplaces. I mean, I've thought about Etsy before, but not like, Wayfair. I think that's an interesting business model. I feel like I'd be worried that I would be leeching from my own website if I did that. I'd be curious if you had any thoughts on that.
I think before it was easier. One good thing about those platforms is that you can potentially get a lot more organic traffic because the platforms already have a lot of traffic on it. So if you're SEO'd well, like search engine optimized well on the site, there are little like tips and tricks that people do to get ranking too. But if you can get ranked and have your stuff showing in the organic searches there, that's a lot of like quote unquote free traffic that you otherwise might not be able to get with just a standalone website. You can also advertise there because they do offer like on-platform advertising as well. At least Etsy does. So if you can do the advertising okay, meaning like the advertising cost is less than whatever profit margins that you're gonna make, that's also a good way of just another channel to sell. And
Yeah. Are there other print on demand tips and tricks you have in terms of people scaling their print business?
our larger and more enterprise customers, most of them they have their own website. It's advertising based, so they spend money on advertising to drive traffic into it. That's a much different animal though, because to do that well, I think you have to do advertising well. That's a whole other skill set. So,
Yes, it
but if you
is.
can do that well, then that can work pretty well. I know there are like Shopify stores out there that sell photography that do okay for themselves. Again, but the business model that they run is that they create the Shopify store, right? There's some work in terms of optimizing the store too, in terms of like optimizing for conversions, making sure that the site's easy to use, but that the conversion rates are good. Then how you do the advertising to drive traffic into it cost effectively, right? Because obviously your advertising cost has to be less than your profit, like less than your gross profits, like your sales cost, your retail costs, less any discounts, less the print cost. So if you can make that work, that's how people really scale up their sales.
Yeah, that makes sense. My approach has been all search engine optimization, but it's has limited utility for sure.
Yeah, it's the safer is not may not be.
Well, it doesn't cost anything.
Doesn't
It's
cost. Yes,
just
that's
time
true.
consuming.
Yes. So just different approaches to the business.
And then how hard would you say it is to link someone's website into your platform? Like, let's say I have a WordPress site and I've got WooCommerce. How much time would it take me to get everything?
The integration takes, if you know what you're doing, it takes 1 to 2 minutes of actually just like putting in the API key, etc. Right? So it's pretty quick. So after you do that, all the products would get imported into the website. That can take a couple of minutes to sync up to get download all the data and all your products in. What we actually recommend customers to do is not to spend the time especially if you have a lot of products, not necessarily to spend the time to automate everything because it takes some time to sit down and go through and set up all the automations. Again, like depends on your order volume, right? Like if you get 1 to 2 orders a day, it's easier just to go in and place the orders as they come in. Because again, it only takes 1 to 2 minutes per order, right? So you're literally only spending like 5 minutes processing all the orders. As you create the orders, you can set it up to automatically automate after that. So if you get the same order after that, it'll remember that you've made those settings, and then it will automatically process after that. Then if you're getting new orders that come in that's not auto-synced, then you go and do it, right? So it's kind of doing the work as you go versus spending a bunch of time up front to do it. But yeah, so getting set up, making your store in, and then processing orders are pretty quick. And again, we have if you have any questions on that, our onboarding specialist can set up like a half an hour call to like really walk
Nice.
through the process.
And what would you say is the smoothest, most time effective integration platform that works with Lumaprints?
So we have integrations, as you say, WooCommerce, Shopify. So those two are easy. The other ones we're building out are Wix, Squarespace. So those are in the process. So those you can link through ShipStation account or an Order Desk account. then all the orders would flow through there.
Gotcha. So I'm hearing you say Shopify or WooCommerce at this point is probably the best. Okay. All right. Well, I think I've covered all of my questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about Lumaprints or what you guys are up to?
Yeah, I think I touched on this before. So I guess a heads up, we do have a weekly webinar that we do as well, where we talk about like different aspects of print on demand. We do some of our product introductions or product reviews, tips and tricks on how to use our website. We also post that to our YouTube channel. Just search for Lumaprints on there, and then you'll find our YouTube channel. And links to our webinar are also on our website as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to visit our website to find out more product details. And we really appreciate all the support that the photography community has provided us throughout the years, and we do look forward to continue serving the community as well.
I love it. Well, Ken, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and thanks for creating a really cool service that I think a lot of photographers are going to end up trying out.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Matt.
Of course. Thank you to Ken for joining me on the podcast this week. I had a great time speaking with you, and I hope that our listeners got a lot out of our conversation. I'd love to hear from listeners about your experiences with print-on-demand laboratories. The best way to do that is to join Patreon for free and leave a comment on this week's show notes over there. Just go to patreon.com/fstopandlisten and drop a note in the comments for this week's show. See you there. Also, if you have an idea for a podcast episode and want to tell your story to the world, please don't be shy. I have a form on my website for you to pitch your idea. I'll leave links to all this in the show notes. Cheers. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.